Hello, everyone. I'm Trista Reed. I am the General Surgery Program Director here at UNC. I am basically sending you this PowerPoint as a way for you to get to know our program in advance, to go through some of the nuts and bolts and logistics of the program. So on the day of interview, you can spend more time asking questions and less going over some of these things that we can talk about in advance. Um, I have been here now at UNC for a long time. I did medical school here and then residency, went away for fellowship, and then came back as an attending and have now been an attending here for a little over 8 years. I took over the program directorship over a year ago, and previous to that was an associate program director for about 6 years here at the institution. One of the things that kind of brought me back again and again to UNC was the people. You'll hear that again and again. The culture is really fabulous here. The residents get along. It's like one big family. The residents feel like they can reach out to the attendings. We work hard together. We play hard together. We really are a team that supports each other, and that's, I think, the biggest kind of draw of the institution. Um, Other things that brought me back include the well-roundedness of the program. You get a great operative experience. UNC is a not-for-profit institution, so we have a lot of underserved population. You see a lot of like very complex pathology. Get a great training in terms of your operative training. Um, and then I think the flexibility of the program, and I'll get into that a little bit more as we go through. So I apologize in advance if it's a little bit of a long presentation, but here's kind of all the things that we're going to try to cover. So Chapel Hill can boast at being the oldest public university in the U.S. There are many graduate students here, as you can see from the numbers. It is a top 10 university in terms of research funding. Here are the numbers. And we note that a large amount of the federal and NIH funding is actually School of Public Health and School of Medicine, so we are contributing fairly extensively to that. So the School of Medicine was founded a long time ago in 1879, and the North Carolina Memorial Hospital was built in 1952 and is shown here down below. And the hospital is located, situated very nicely right next to the football stadium on UNC campus. So this is what the hospital looks like now. Over on the far right side is the cancer hospital, followed by the neuroscience hospital, women's and children's. And then the hospital is a little older over on the left side. That's the Memorial Hospital. And then on the far, far left is the new surgical tower, which just opened up this summer. It's utterly amazing. Brand new ICUs, brand new surgical tower that includes like way bigger rooms, all this new technology, ability to video via all of the overhead lights and laparoscopic and robotic equipment. So it is really an amazing new hospital that we've just started using. The UNC healthcare system itself is a not-for-profit 15 hospital system across North Carolina. Our residents go specifically to the main hospital and then Hillsborough campus, which is about 10 miles away and is more of a community type hospital, bread and butter surgery, a lot of robotic surgery out there. It's a great experience for our PGY2s and 4s. And then we have another affiliate, which is Wake Med, which is about 30 minutes away and closer to Raleigh. And that is a level 1 trauma center with tons of trauma, also bread and butter surgery, as it's more of a kind of a hybrid model. So this is just another overview of the UNC Health Sciences campus. And there are a lot of different schools involved with it. So we have the School of Medicine, School of Public Health, School of Nursing, School of Pharmacy, Dentistry, the Lineberger Comprehensive Cancer Center, and the biomedical graduate programs. And so all of those schools being in close proximity to each other leads to a lot of cross specialty and school collaboration available to us. One thing that's a little different from our institution compared to some other institutions is that the funding for the School of Public Health and School of Medicine are separate, so you may notice that if you're looking at our funding sources. So we have a long history of strong leadership in the department. Dr. Tony Meyer, who's our chair from 2001 to 2016, is still operating and still part of our department and is a great resource. Dr. Melina Kibbe really increased our research mission here at UNC and is currently the dean at UVA. And then Dr. Greenberg came and is our new chair as of 2022, and she's absolutely amazing. She spent many years at the University of Wisconsin and was the prior chair at the Medical College of Georgia. She has a lot of amazing ideas around video feedback and coaching that she has brought to our department already. I'm sure you'll get to hear more from her about all this on the interview day. So we have several different divisions in the Department of Surgery that the residents rotate through. There is GI surgery, which is minimally invasive and colorectal, surgical oncology, pediatric surgery, abdominal transplant, which also includes islet cell transplantation, liver and hepatobiliary, renal transplantation as well. The trauma acute care surgery division, burn surgery, which we have one of the largest burn centers in the country, vascular surgery, cardiothoracic surgery, and plastic surgery. So now I'm going to go into a little bit of our program overview and structure of the program itself. Here's our program leadership. Dr. Stem is a colorectal surgeon and is one of our APDs, and Dr. Mike Lecomte is a hepatobiliary surgeon and serves as another APD. The training program is a 5-year clinical training program with 7 categorical positions. There is an optional research or academic development time, and this, I think, is one of the kind of highlights of our program, is that it's not mandatory. You can take time off if you want to take time off. It's usually 2 years, and it's after the PGY 3 year. And usually we have about 3 or 4 residents per year on average go out, so about 5 to 7 residents at any one time are out doing academic development time. The primary goal of our clinical program is a comprehensive clinical training, broad-based. We want to create independent surgeons in and out of the OR and leaders in the field. These are some of the goals of the training program by year. I'm not going to go through all of this stuff, but basically as a PGY1 you start out with patient management, but we do get our PGY1s in the OR a lot. As time develops, during PGY 3 year, we try to start to give residents more responsibility as chiefs on certain services, such as at Wake Med and transplant, basically to allow them that leadership that will be expected as they progress. And then that leadership continues to grow and they transition towards independence as they go into 4th and 5th year. These are the PGY1 rotations. The duration is about 1 month. You'll rotate through lower GI, minimally invasive surgery, oncology, pediatrics, trauma and acute care surgery, Wake Med, burn unit, thoracic, vascular, transplant, and the surgical ICU. The rotations get a little bit longer during the PGY 2 year to 6 weeks. You'll rotate through GI, minimally invasive and hernia, oncology, trauma acute care, Hillsborough Hospital, Wake Med, surgical ICU, and during that time, there's a night float system built in, so the PGY2s are there at night taking care, being in charge of the unit, and it's really a rotation where they get to grow a lot. There is support and backup there in the hospital for them, but they're the ones in charge, and so we start to see that autonomy growing as soon as your PGY 2 year. They also rotate through vascular, thoracic, and burn surgery. Here are the rotations during the PGY 3 year, which are all about 8 weeks in length. Here are the rotations for the PGY 4 year, again, a little bit longer duration. And during PGY 5 year, we actually have an elective rotation where you can explore your interests a little bit more. And usually our residents really love this rotation. So to talk about call and hours, we adhere to a strict 80-hour work policy with residents basically on call on the weekends every other weekend. So you'll be on for 2 days straight on the weekend and you'll get 2 days off on the weekend.
During PGY 1 year, it's basically a night float system, which was based on resident feedback. So you're only on 24-hour call occasionally on the weekends, and you get more operative and face time with attendings during the week. The night float system basically gives you a chunk of like a week at a time where you do nights. PGY 2, you're on call about 1 or 2 nights per month on the weekends, because we likewise built a night float system into the trauma rotation where you do chunks of a week at a time. And the PGY 2s are really happy with this system so far. PGY 3s, your only in-house night call is at Wake Med, which is also kind of like a weekly system. And PGY 4s and 5s take mostly home call for their services and have no 24-hour call at all. There is a night float rotation during your PGY 4 year, and basically 12-hour shifts on the weekends that are covered by PGY 4s and 5s.
So I'm really pleased and proud of this fact. Our resident attrition rate is only 6% over the past 20 years, and it's really been 0% since 2011. National average is about 15% attrition rate. And I think this is really a testament to the faculty and the residents, those relationships, that collaboration. It's just a great program to train at. Now I'll talk a little bit about our operative experience and what that looks like.
So we really have a robust surgical experience here across PGY years. Our PGY 1s get in the OR. These are the average number of major cases that our graduating chief residents graduate with, which is usually somewhere between 1,100 and 1,200 cases. The green line there represents the RRC minimum.
These are the total number of chief cases. The RRC minimum is about 200, and we're consistently well above that. These don't include teaching cases, it's just the chief cases alone. So these are the RRC index case requirements. The dark blue columns are the RRC minimum, and our graduating chief residents are the light blue. As you can see, not every single case, but almost all of them, we almost double the RRC minimums. So a lot of really good exposure. We thrive in terms of alimentary and open abdominal cases, complex laparoscopy. There are not minimums for robotic surgery, so that's not on here. That being said, our goal is to graduate every resident with a certificate in robotics, and we've been aggressively growing our robotics program. I think probably 3 or 4 years ago, robotics was probably a weakness of the program. Based on resident feedback, we've been really incorporating that, grown a robotics curriculum, and that's basically one of our major areas of focus now. I think another one of our strengths that I'm trying really hard to maintain is graduated autonomy. So I think we do a really good job of allowing our chiefs to direct and do these really complex cases, and walk junior residents through them. And so by the time they graduate, like, they can operate on just about anything. So now I'll move on to didactic education and talk a little bit about the robotics and simulation that we're doing.
So this is what our education schedule looks like. Basically every Wednesday morning, didactics and simulation are paired from 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. So the residents are split into juniors and seniors, and they'll have like 1 hour of didactics and then 1 hour of simulation, with a core group like PGY 2s, for example, breaking off and doing the cadaver lab every week. And I'll get into that a little bit more. But pagers are covered. We have fully protected time for this. Like many programs, we use SCORE for our curriculum, which has a question bank. It has articles that relate to the different modules and topics.
We have a dedicated simulation lab, and this is probably what I'm most excited about this year. Dr. Blindman, our Vice Chair of Business and Innovation, along with Dr. Perez and Dr. Lecomte, have really revamped the entire space. We've reorganized, added new lab trainers, new full OR space, new workrooms with computers, phones, a monitor that you can actually watch the OR streaming live. We're partnering with a Research Triangle Industries, trialing new embalming fluid for cadavers that allows us to perfuse the cadavers for weeks at a time at room temperature and do all sorts of live OR simulations on them. We're really moving towards the cutting edge of education. Our new OR towers also have live video capability, and we're setting up a real room so that the residents can actually watch their operative videos with attendings afterwards and kind of go through where they can improve and where to go next. Here are some pictures of us actually using those cadavers in the operating room. We did total hepatic vascular isolation, basically did mobilization and exposure on all blood vessels, created injuries to blood vessels and fixed them. Here on the robot, they did a distal pancreatectomy using the robot on the cadaver. So just really cool things that we're able to accomplish. So we do have a full robot in the simulation lab with lots of different activities that the residents can perform in practice. We twice a year have a robot lab where we basically have each PGY a year work on different skills. They operate on chickens, they operate on cadavers. It's just a really cool curriculum. And we've broken down the curriculum by PGY level for the specific rotations that they're going to be on to try to kind of maximize what they get out of those rotations. I also run asset and best courses, which are basically cadaver courses teaching REBOA and vascular exposure techniques in trauma. We tell the residents, the patient got shot in the arm or shot in the chest, and I have them dissect and expose the vessels through the whole body. It's a fabulous course. We also have new technology in ultrasound and high fidelity mannequins right next door in the new School of Medicine. We also make use of those. I take the PGY2s over there and run codes on the mannequins where we have like full vital signs on the monitors. The mannequins can like make noises, lift their arms up. You can give them Lasix and actually get urine back in their Foleys. So just very high fidelity simulation available to us. This is one of the things that we do for our interns every year. When you arrive, we have an intern boot camp, which is basically sitting down, getting to know each other, teaching all of the interns about how to do a discharge summary. What do you do when you get called in the middle of the night about atrial fibrillation? Kind of some of the basics of being an intern. Included in that is a ropes course, which you don't have to actually do any of the ropes portion if you don't want to. It's actually more icebreakers and team activities where you get to spend time with your fellow interns and learn how to rely on each other because these are going to be the people that you rely on throughout your years in the program. Over on the left here, this is a picture actually of this year. I supported our interns going on a pre-residency backpacking trip that they wanted to do, and it was another team building activity that they were really excited about, so I supported them doing that. For the past 20 years, we've also had a Resident as Teachers conference, which is a yearly event, protected time for the residents, where they get to go sit down with a visiting faculty member and basically learn how to be teachers. And the residents really get a lot out of it, learning how to be a teacher, learning how to be a leader and an educator.
So we take resident feedback very seriously. This is basically summarized after every 6 months to preserve anonymity. But there are peer evaluations at the end of every rotation. There's midpoint feedback from the faculty and EPAs that the faculty do for each resident. There are faculty evaluations and rotations and service evaluations that the residents fill out. And again, these are summarized after every 6 months to preserve anonymity. You evaluate rotations, faculty, and a yearly program evaluation. And then these are really used in consideration of faculty career progression, awards, compensation. So it does mean a lot to us. And we always are trying to work on how we can get better. I think we do really, really well at taking the feedback the residents give us and incorporating it into practice. So most of the changes that have happened over the past 5 years in the program have come directly from the residents themselves. I meet regularly with each PGY level to talk about, well, how are you doing over the past couple of months? And then we have kind of brainstorming, problem solving sessions and quarterly meetings with the department chair and the GME.
Last year, we developed a resident think tank, which is basically a group made up of all different PGY years. We meet regularly, discuss ways to improve the program. So we're always thinking about how we can do better.
So we really are a family. I'm going to talk a little bit about the residents. We work together, we play together, faculty and residents get along very well. Probably about once a month, there's a program related or sponsored event. We usually have a pumpkin carving party at some point during the year, which here are some pictures of that.
We have a Hogwarts party every year, which is basically a way to sort all the residents into their peer mentorship houses. Both residents and faculty are divided into these 5 houses. And so every year we pull the names out of the little hat, and people get sorted into their respective peer mentorship houses. We have competitions throughout the year based off of the houses, like ABSITE scores, robotics competitions, who participates in different activities. And at the end of the year, the house that wins gets the house cup.
Some more pictures of us all hanging out together. There's some peer mentorship house meetings on here, hanging out with Wake Med faculty, St. Patty's Day party.
We have an annual UNC Duke softball game, which is a lot of fun. The funny story about this was when this first started many years ago, Duke won a couple games in a row, and so they bought this massive trophy for whoever the winner was. And then basically, since they bought the trophy, that trophy has stayed at UNC every single year. We also have a good collaboration with Duke in a lot of other ways. We currently are collaborating with them on the asset course, and they have an ADAM course, which is basically a pig lab, and we have the cadaver lab, and we're sending residents basically across the street to each other's institutions to participate in these activities. We also have a robot competition with them as well. So this just highlights all the states where current UNC surgery residents attended medical school, kind of highlighting the fact that we're a national program. We take people from all over the country. We are a very diverse group of residents. We are a very inclusive program. We recruit residents regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, religion, sexual orientation, background. We are well above national averages for women and persons underrepresented in medicine. Our faculty is similarly above national averages for women and underrepresented minorities in surgery. We have a broad group from a lot of different backgrounds and a lot of different stages of their lives.
So following residency, our residents tend to go into fellowship. About 90 to 95% go into fellowship, and 5 to 10% go into practice directly, which does highlight the fact that you can get the skills and go straight into practice and be practice ready at our institution. Here are our current 2026 chief residents and where they're planning on going for fellowship next year. Here are our recent graduates. As a whole, everyone matches really, really well into fellowships, no matter what fellowship they're going into. The vast majority of our residents get their top #1 or #2 spot for fellowship. Here's the 2024 group. And so I think you'll notice that they're not the same number of residents on every slide, and it's because we have a variable number of residents coming out of research time. But I do think this is a really big highlight of the program, that our residents basically always match into the fellowships they're trying to get into, even the really competitive ones, and they match at major academic institutions at their top choices. And I just had to include this one because it's a great story. These are the 2018 residents who broke into Dr. Meyer's office and drank all of his Diet Coke out of his fridge.
And so you really will make friends that you'll keep for life. This is actually my graduating class. We're all on a WhatsApp thread together and see each other regularly at the American College of Surgeons. This is us getting convocated together at the American College of Surgeons. The department's commitment to surgical trainees extends across a wide variety of topics. So other than just the clinical development and academic development we already spoke about, professional development such as building and coding, how to negotiate a contract, sending residents to leadership courses and education courses, and supporting them for different development awards. The mentoring, we have a formal mentorship program beyond just the pure mentorship houses. So the residents meet twice a year with a formal mentor and go over their CV. You know, how can I make my CV more competitive for the specialty I want to go into? Talk about academic development time, if they're taking it, how to maximize that opportunity, etc. Um, we do have support for academic activities, so for presenting at national and regional meetings, there is a travel stipend for every resident that's $1,500 per resident per year for those activities. Wellness obviously is very important to us, which is a broad program focused on education and activities and fun outside of work. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But we have both wellness and diversity committees who are very strongly invested in the residents.
So a big part of wellness is being able to have a life outside the hospital and have fun with friends. This is are some pictures of our ugly holiday sweater party that has become an annual event.
More pictures from our fall get together and spring get togethers. So one thing that must be said about Chapel Hill is it's a great place to live. You are equidistant from the coast and the mountains, so it's about 3 hours to the beach and about 3 to 4 hours to the mountains. There are biking and hiking trails kind of everywhere in Chapel Hill. It's fairly easy to live here in terms of the cost of living. The Research Triangle Park in which we live is a just phenomenal place full of research and innovation. So it's just really an exciting place to be. And as I said, there are a million things to do in Chapel Hill. A lot of it is outside activities. There's a ton to do outside because the weather's so nice. But for those of you who are foodies, there are local breweries and restaurants within Chapel Hill, as well within Durham. There's a great music scene at the Cat's Cradle, and that's in Chapel Hill in Carborough. And Durham has the Performing Arts Center, museums all over the place. It's just a really great place to live. The school systems are really great too for those of you who have children.
Now I'm going to pivot to start talking about research in the department. Here's some pictures of a couple of our residents presenting at the American College of Surgeons.
And here are a couple more pictures from the American College of Surgeons this year. So I want to talk a little bit about optional research time and what that looks like. So in general, it is after the PGY3 year, and it's 2 years. Occasionally people will do 3 years. We've never had anybody do 1 year, but I suppose it would be a potential option if the numbers worked out with the residents coming in and out of the lab.
Usually about half of the residents pursue research time. So here's just a view of the number of residents who are in research at any one time by year.
One of the things I love about the research opportunities in our department is that it's incredibly broad. So it can include, health services research, health outcomes, global surgery, basic bench work, translational, QI, education simulation. We've had people do all sorts of things. Kevin, one of our current PGY4 residents, worked with a faculty at UNC who is in computational biology and informatics and did some really cool things with AI and machine learning. We have multiple faculty with NIH funding, several T32 training grants, specifically in trauma and cancer. And just because we're surrounded by so many departments and schools, there are like many opportunities for funding and training grants on campus that we also use. We have the SHEP Center, NC Tracks, departmental statisticians, lots of different groups and organizations who can help our residents achieve their research needs. Funding, I will say, is never really a problem and is really one of the strengths of our program. We have never had issues getting our residents funded. One of the strengths of our program also is, I think, that flexibility that if you want to take this time to do research, you can, but you also have that option to not participate and go straight through the 5 years.
One thing that our residents frequently do is get a master's in public health at Gillings School of Public Health. It's generally either #1 or #2 in the country, so it's a great school of public health and has a lot of funding and a lot of opportunities. And the residents can get a public health master's in 1 year, which is really amazing.
We have a sizable global and public health effort as well through the department in terms of collaboration with Malawi. So this collaboration initially started off with infectious disease and OBGYN, but now we have a very large surgical footprint in Malawi. So this is just a really cool collaboration that we have with Kamuzu Central Hospital in Malawi. Dr. Charles started this back in 2007 and basically helped them build a surgical residency at Kamuzu Central Hospital. And it used to be we would go and it was all foreign surgeons who were operating at Kamuzu Central Hospital, but now it is all the Malawians who have gone through the surgical residency program. They're now the faculty at that institution. So it's a great, basically, effort in collaboration, sustainability, and really how global surgery should be done and practiced. We have a trauma registry, burn registry, pediatric surgery registries there. We're expanding the ICU. We're expanding the trauma footprint in terms of the trauma systems and how the district hospitals get their patients to the central hospital. And it's just a really great facility. And when we go there, we collaborate with our faculty colleagues there. We operate, we do research with our 10 data clerks that we have there. And here's a picture of Dr. Charles, who is the head of the Malawi Surgical Initiative, and Dr. Jared Gallagher, who's the co-director and actually was one of the residents here and is now one of our trauma faculty. Here are a list of the folks who are pursuing dedicated research time currently. So we do want people to be involved in research even if they aren't taking the dedicated research time. So our goal is to have all of our residents complete 3 or more manuscripts by the end of residency and at least 1 during the first 3 years. You can see here some pictures over to the right of our annual research day with residents and attendings looking at the residents and medical students' work. During the PGY1 year, all of our residents meet with Dr. Ye during the first quarter, who is our vice chair of research. They identify mentors and projects, discuss whether or not they're going into dedicated academic development and research time. Usually at the kind of mid PGY2 year in December, the residents have to decide if they're going to do the dedicated academic research time. Proposals are developed basically during that second half of the PGY2 year, including funding sources and extramural grant applications. Research time will then generally begin after the 3rd year. And then we have a lot of resources to help you do this. So Dr. Ye has a bunch of resources set up on the website. This includes access to national databases, access to our department biostatisticians who can help do stats, grant support, and how to go about applying for grant funding. Now I'm going to go through recent residency changes, starting with resident wellness. So wellness is super important to us. We have a taking care of our own program through the psychiatry department that's always available for free to our residents. Each resident gets 6 personal care wellness days that they know about well in advance, so they can go to appointments or sleep. We have a significant other support group that we developed this year for partners of trainees who have potentially moved across the country, don't know anybody. We developed a float resident this year as well who can help kind of plug any gaps in coverage on busy services. Per the American Board of Surgery restrictions, we can only give 6 weeks of maternity or paternity leave during clinical years, but it is equal either for maternity or paternity leave, and we are often able to use sick days or personal days to kind of help lengthen that time. We have updated all our lactation policies to allow residents to have time to pump if they need to, protected time for peripartum visits, and some updated safe pregnancy policies that we did just this year, including no 24-hour call or night call after 30 weeks, which is a particularly vulnerable time in pregnancy. Another change that we've done recently is a selection committee for recruitment and for review of all of our applications. Our patient population, the general population, is incredibly diverse, and we want our workforce to also reflect that diversity. We want people to come here and feel welcomed and included. We are aware that there could be biases that may be present in reviewing applications, and we've really tried to negate those biases by employing a selection committee that is super diverse in terms of backgrounds and experiences. That selection committee is made up of both residents and faculty, and reviewed every single application that we received using a holistic approach. All selection committee members underwent unconscious bias training prior to reviewing applications. You may note during the interview process that you are interviewing with some residents, and you may note that some of the faculty, including Dr. Greenberg, our chair, are blinded to the majority of your application and have standardized interview questions, so that you can really just have a conversation. Our review of the actual applications from the initial go were blinded to step scores, race, ethnicity, gender, self-identification.
So things in kind of education and mentorship spaces that we've changed recently include the entrustable professional activities, which is basically an app on your phone. You can send your attendings a prompt saying, hey, I did a gallbladder with you. How do you think I did? And they can give you direct actionable feedback in real time on that activity. We've also rolled out midpoint feedback from faculty to residents so that there's more frequent check-ins with how the residents are actually doing on services. A new weekly lunch case-based conference and video review conference, which happens on Thursdays, and that's been going really well. The residents love that. The robotics curriculum, which I mentioned, which we're still in the process of refining it and putting QR codes next to the robot simulator so the residents can just click on it and say, oh, I'm going to be on Stitz's service next week. I'm going to work on these particular modules on the robot. The mentorship houses, which is relatively new in the past 2 years, the resident think tank, as well as I think the big education overhaul is all the new things that we're doing up in the Sim Center with the weekly simulations and the cadaver labs. Here's some of the rotation changes that have happened over the years. So in 2022, we added on the PGY5 elective rotation to give some flexibility in the training. 2023, we updated our specific expectations for each resident by their PGY level on each service, so that it's very clear if you're a PGY2 on this service, this is what we expect you to do clinically, operatively, professionally. 2024, we expanded our night float system for the PGY2s to avoid as many 24-hour calls. And we also added a PGY4 at Hillsborough, basically to give them more robotics and complex upper GI and robot volume. And we also added a float resident that year to give some redundancy in the system. And 2025, we've now expanded that night float system for the PGY1s.
Dr. Greenberg is our department chair, and she has been here since 2022. She has some incredible ideas on expanding our clinical footprint, collaborating across the state of North Carolina, and really becoming an innovative center as far as education goes. She is big on quality. She advocates for trainees, and surgical coaching is kind of her niche. Both faculty and residents. She's involved in the American Board of Surgery in several areas around coaching. So that's something that you can expect to see becoming more incorporated in our program. And then when talking about new changes, obviously I have to mention the surgical tower again. It's full of new ICUs, new ORs, and is just a really incredible new technological space for us.
So people often ask me, what do I think makes a great resident, or what type of person am I looking for to recruit to the program? And I think, we want people who are committed to self-improvement, committed to being excellent. We want people who want to be leaders at an institutional, regional, and national level. But we want people who have integrity, who are honest, who own up to their mistakes, who are thinking about how am I going to do it better next time, always looking to better themselves. I think fundamentally, I'm looking for people who are intellectually curious, who are passionate about operating and becoming a clinically excellent person, but who are really passionate about advancing surgery as well in a bigger picture in some way, be it via scientific discovery, improving quality or larger public health measures, and improving care for underserved populations. How whatever it is, biodesign, global trauma systems, improving education methods, increasing diversity in the healthcare system. There's no like one thing or set path that you have to be on, but I want to see people who are fired up about some kind of bigger picture. Um, but I think probably the most important thing is that we are one big family. So I really want team players. Um, I want to find people who are kind and compassionate people who want to make the world a better place. Um, I really think that's what our residents embody. I want the resident who is going to be leaving the hospital after their work is done, who sees somebody else struggling or overwhelmed and with zero benefit or advantage to themselves will stop and help their fellow resident. Um, because I often find that, people who are lifting up the people around them are the ones who also end up elevating themselves.
All right, well, that's about everything. So this is just a picture of, UNC basketball, which basketball is huge at UNC. Prior, when we used to have in-person interviews, we would, go to lunch at the basketball museum. Obviously, not doing that now, but we do have an early February second look. Um, it's not a mandatory thing. We will not be taking attendance, and it will not affect your ranking at all. So I don't know who comes to it. It's just a way for people who haven't been here before, who want to check out the area, who want to spend time with the residents and kind of get to know them, to come and do so. And that's all we'll have you do. Spend time with the residents, get a feel for the program. It's generally a Friday walk through the hospital kind of tour, and that evening an informal gathering at one of the residents' houses to meet and get to know them better. You won't meet any faculty. It's not an interview, and we won't track who's coming or going. It's just a resource for you. And bring your questions to our Q&A session the day of your interview. Usually what I do from the 12 to 1 o'clock session, we have some of the vice chairs and leadership give you a couple of minutes of their personal thoughts on the program, and then we open it up for questions. And I hope this has given you a nice overview of everything. I can't wait to meet all of you.